Well, this one really needs no introduction. It is rivalry week. USC facing UCLA for the 95th time, this time at the Coliseum. We will be here for the next hour, hour and a half. Who knows how long it's going to go? Maybe 20 minutes. Who knows? It's the day after Thanksgiving, so you never know. But we will be talking about the game. We'll talk about some previous matchups and definitely be talking about this Saturday's matchup with you guys. All those things coming up next. Well, a close one last year. SC escapes 1913, and really under Lincoln Riley, they've kind of been some pretty close games with the Bruins. Fairly remember that the Corey Foreman interception, which sealed the game for USC. DTR, it was just it was a quarterback battle in that game, just throwing on who had the ball last. Seemed like that was going to be the one that won. Corey Foreman has his moment in the sun at USC and steps forward, intercepts it. USC has, for the most part, been getting in on the good side of the ledger. 19 of the last 26 have gone to the men in Cardinal and Gold. But this is a new one. We will be discussing the game, but I do want to pick your guys' brains out there. I'm definitely going to talk to Jamal about favorite games, favorite players from the feud, and anything else you guys want to talk about. The phone number is not up. It will be up in a second. 888-99-RILEY. Give us a call. I'm also going to drop the StreamYard link in there for you guys. But Jamal, how was your Thanksgiving?
Well, Tim, great to see you and happy Friday night. And no, Thanksgiving, first one with, I've got a 14-month-old. And so it's technically her second Thanksgiving, but really her first in terms of just with the personality and the ability to interact. So obviously the family wants to, spend as much time with her as possible that they've kind of come from out of town. So schedule's been a little wonky here the last couple of days, but in the best way. And, just such a fun time of the year. We're a few weeks out from Halloween. We got a few weeks until Christmas and the New Year. Feels like we're in the heart of the holiday season. So it's been a really, really special Thanksgiving. How about you, my friend? How the last few days been?
Relaxing. That's what happens when you get a little bit older. Your kids are older. It's just you don't have to be the star of the show. You're going to other people's houses, not to your own house. It's nice. It's nice to do that kind of Thanksgiving. Don't get me wrong. I miss the old days having the kids over to the house up, but it's nice. It's just nice to have another Thanksgiving with no incidents, right? Because usually they say Thanksgiving is like a crazy day for stuff to go wrong, and whether it be a burned turkey, a dry turkey, or whatever, went without any incidents. Put it that way.
Love it.
This game on Saturday the same way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And we're here, Tim. Feels like we were just talking about this game last year, and it's so funny how when you're sort of in the teeth of it, it feels like every day in season almost feels like its own storyline. But we fail to recognize. I mean, the college football regular season is 90 days out of the year. I mean, it's unbelievable to sort of think about. It's September, October, November, and especially with this game kind of being pulled to the left. And you and I are such historians of this game, and I'm excited to be chatting with you about not just this edition, but the history of the game. It goes by way too fast, but really excited to break this down with you as always, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, we don't go back as far clearly as this series, but it's the game that the old heads talk about. I remember I've heard stories. My dad talk about the only Heisman Trophy winner, Gary Beeben. I think that's when also UCLA won their national championship. Was under Beeben? Was he the quarterback?
Yeah, in 54. Yep.
So some really, really great back and forth over the years. I mean, obviously the big one people remember is the OJ cutback in that game in the 1968, 69, I don't know, somewhere around there game. And then, let's just jump into it. I'll wait for everyone. So let's just talk about your player. The player, when you think about this game, now, who's the guy you think about? And I personally think about that 2005 Reggie Bush game. That's what I call it. Reggie goes for over 10 plus yards of carry, 260 yards, and the Bruins were ranked. I mean, if they weren't top 10, they were right around top 10.
Yeah,
USC
that was UCLA came in 12th in that game against the juggernaut that was SC. It was actually really interesting, right, Tim? If you recall that 05 game, it was sort of set up to be undefeated versus undefeated, actually. And UCLA was kind of a team of destiny that year in 05. They had 4 fourth quarter comebacks to sort of keep preserving their undefeated season. And then 2 weeks prior to the game, UCLA goes up to Tucson, and they were always sort of a shoddy defense that year, but had a ton of offense with Maurice Jones-Drew, Drew Olson, Mercedes Lewis, all those guys, and just got shellacked against Arizona. That was a 52-14 game, and UCLA was sort of as high as 6 that year. That dropped them down to 12, so it was headed to be kind of a 1 versus 5, 1 versus 6 kind of game. Ended up being 1 versus 12. And, no one was going to stop that 05. That was the peak of the dynasty there. That was a 66-19 game that SC just, throttled the Bruins there. And it was all offensive line there. I mean, Bush was with 12.7 yards per carry in that game, if I recall, on 18 carries. Lendale ran wild. It was just SC, superiority in terms of running game and offensive line. But I'll tell you, the year before was such a fun one too. I mean, you can compare which Reggie Bush game you want. You want the 05 game in the Collie, you want that 04 game in the Rose Bowl, where he busts that original run, that cutback, and then he famously flips into the end zone, and then he has a second first quarter touchdown that was 70 plus yards, and that, the Rose Bowl was going bananas there. That ultimately ended up being, in a lot of ways, a very interesting game. It was 29-24 that particular year. SC ends up kicking 5 field goals in that game. Tim, if you recall, people were afraid that it might have cost Leinart his Heisman that year because he was so uneven in that game. Of course, Leinart prevailed to win the Heisman, but in a lot of ways that sort of, I think, put some thoughts in his head that maybe I want to come back one more year, and so some great games. But man, that OJ Beeben game, that cutback 21-20. The late, great Keith Jackson, I remember him describing the game. He said, the Rose Bowl's on the line. The national championship is on the line. The Heisman Trophy is on the line. The city bragging rights are on the line. That has to be, for sort of historical significance. Obviously, it predates both of us. So, we weren't there. We didn't have sort of firsthand experience. But just the way people talk about the mythology of that game, you have to believe that one's way at the top.
Yeah, for sure. And then the weird thing about that 05 game is we thought UCLA was to be the big impediment. Sure, I don't know, maybe if they were just gassed because of that game to UCLA, but that's when Fresno State comes and gives USC a hell of a scare, and that's when Reggie just, again,
the ball behind
that might be the Reggie
back,
game.
Behind his back, Tim, when he put that ball behind his back and
just like the OJ
cutback there and cut it back. I mean, to me, that's the most iconic moment in college football, the 21st century. And I'm biased because, people may jump to, the Vince Young run, on 4th and 6 or something about the kick 6, perhaps, if you're
that didn't happen. Wait, Jamal,
guy.
Jamal, and the NCAA said that game didn't happen. So.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But to me, just in terms of pure football, and the drama of it all and just the pure football play, man, Reggie putting that ball behind his back and stopping on a dime against Fresno State, man, that was the ultimate there for me. And, the peak of the peak,
Yeah. So many great games to go through. And I mean, I think when I was really young, there's that Affolter catch in the back of the end zone with USC winning last second. There were a couple of those. It's great. That's the thing about this rivalry. There's so many so many plays, that you can remember. You remember, if you don't remember the game, you remember the play. There's plays that came out, plays that came out. But yeah, for me, it was a hell of a. I'll tell you what, one of the greatest games UCLA games I have watched was that one, the DTR game, where Corey Foreman makes that interception. Because talk about your game where there's a lot of explosive offense, and looks like both defenses took the night off or didn't get off the bus. I don't know which story it was, but. That was a back and forth battle that really is usually typified these games. But I have to say, though, overall, it's kind of been difficult to watch USC and UCLA just kind of slip from the limelight, because this nationally used to be one of the big games of now it's an afterthought.
Tim, I mean, you said it best. I mean, I'll start with sort of the first point. I mean, that 22 game, that 48-45, and, Caleb at the peak of his powers. Jordan Addison had 12 catches in that game. And, it was sort of shot for shot there with DTR and Caleb. And, I think when Latu sacked Caleb with about 3 minutes to go in that game, because no one got a stop in the second half. It was sort of wild. It was just touchdown. When Latu sacked Caleb, with about 3 minutes to go. The whole stadium thought UCLA was going to win the game. The UCLA fans, the SC fans, just because of how the game was going. UCLA finds their way past midfield. You're still at about a minute 20. It's sort of set up right perfectly. And Corey Foreman, comes out of nowhere, the Buster Douglas moment really of his career.
Yeah.
We hadn't heard from him before, hadn't heard from him since. He was such a decorated player for, from a recruiting perspective. It makes the biggest play. And to that point, perhaps the most dramatic Lincoln Riley win, in my estimation. I know the Iowa game recently, he went crazy on the sideline. It was huge for him. But in terms of sheer drama, I would still put that 22 Victory Bell game as sort of the most dramatic win of the Lincoln Riley tenure. And Tim, you said it best. I mean, it's hard to imagine this, but when you and I were growing up and well, into the 2000s as well, it used to be Michigan, Ohio State on ABC at 9 a.m. And then it used to be USC, UCLA on ABC at 12:30. Like that's where this game was at one time. It was sort of shot for shot in terms of the best rivalries in all of college football. And then usually what ABC used to do, if you recall this, Tim, is, they'd probably put like Florida State at like 5 p.m. Like that was kind of the triple header